Stop scrolling.
Literally everywhere you look, there's an ad. Netflix, Disney Plus, Walmart, Target, mobile apps, gyms like Planet Fitness. Heck, even the Las Vegas Sphere has a digital advertising billboard within it. Back in the day, digital advertising used to be relegated to the big tech giants. Think Facebook, Twitter, Google, YouTube, the largest tech companies with the most customers and the most data. But now I can't seem to go anywhere without seeing an advertisement. And it's getting even worse because companies like YouTube or practically every media site that's built on advertising are preventing you from using things like ad blockers because so much of their revenue relies on this channel. So what the heck is going on and why is every company now turning into an ad network? Before I answer that specific question, let's just look at some general stats on digital advertising to put things into perspective. In 2023, digital advertising spend crossed $600 billion, and you can expect that number to continue growing drastically over the next few years. We'll probably be at over $1 trillion before the end of the decade. The thing that makes advertising so different than every other business model out there and every other marketing channel available to companies is that digital advertising can get into a cadence where it's just very predictable. You know that if you spend X amount of dollars, you're gonna get Y amount of dollars in return. And this is a metric that marketers think of as return on ad spend, or ROAS. This metric right here is the number one reason why every company wants to be in the advertising business if they can and they have the data and the means to do so. The average return on digital advertising is that for every dollar spent, it's close to $3 returned. And that's an average stat across all industries. So it's about a 2-to-1, return to spend ratio. And all this goes to say that every company in the world across every industry, whether you're B2B, B2C, whether you're in media and entertainment, or whether you're in retail or, mobile for that matter, or banking, is probably looking at digital advertising as a way to make money in a revenue line. So how did we get here? It makes sense why companies are trying to become ad networks, right? That makes sense. There's a lot of money in this business. But how did this actually happen? How did everyone become an ad network over the last 10 years? Well, it kind of starts with a broader macro trend around direct to consumer. In order to make money, you see this across all industries. Every company in the world is basically trying to go direct to consumer or spin up a direct to consumer revenue line. When you own your customer and when you sell your app, your services, your goods directly to them, you just make a lot more money as a company. Whereas when you have intermediaries, whether that's a supplier or distributor for that matter, or retailer, you just lose a lot of money in that process. These intermediaries that own the distribution, that own the customer, that get your products into the customer's hands, actually take a large cut. So this trend has been trying to happen for the longest time. Companies have been trying to start up direct-to-consumer businesses or channels to grow their revenue. But two things happened. One, digital, the internet, the rise of e-commerce, all those trends over there made this a lot easier for brands. In addition, COVID is the second trend that didn't just make digital and internet important to every business in every industry, but it also just made it essential to survive in many industries. And once you own the customer, you just open up so many more monetization avenues, because you have enormous amount of more data about your customers and their behaviors and their interests than you do when you're just focusing on your product and distributing via someone else. And that's where the next thing comes in, first-party data. First-party data is probably the number one reason that advertising has exploded over the last 5 years. The reason that all these companies wanted to go direct to consumer often started with something else. COVID, costs, owning the customer, more revenue. But once you do go to direct to consumer, you have the ability to open up more monetization channels based on this enormous amount of data that you've accumulated. Now, these monetization channels can include things like just selling the data, right? That's one possibility. But with selling data, the companies you're selling to have to have a good use case for it in mind. They have to know what to do with it. And there's tons of different legal and privacy and brand ramifications of that. But something that's been more normalized in society is selling the eyeballs, selling the actual traffic that's coming to your website and showing things that might be interesting to customers as they come to your brand, as they come to your product, or as they look at your smart TV, for example. When you're digital and you're direct to consumer, you have way more data to use to build a really rich advertising platform than you did in the physical world. Let's just look at, two hard examples of this. Take a company like Walmart, not to pick on them. Consumers go to Walmart, They buy things at the store. And Walmart does have a pretty rich set of customer data from this. They pull down everything in their point of sale systems and ERP systems and checkout aisles. They could actually get pretty interesting data on what every household in America is purchasing. Groceries, technology products, snacks, you name it. When you look at that in the digital world, they have way more data. Not just what you're purchasing, but what you looked at, what you were interested in purchasing, how much time you spent on those things, what categories you're interested in, what days of the week you like to shop. And all this rich data that Walmart now has in a digital platform of their e-commerce systems actually allows to create a really rich ad network. The same is true for TVs. If you look at a company that like Samsung that was selling electronic devices like a TV, you don't really have much data when you do that. Maybe you have a survey that someone filled out at checkout. Maybe you have where the TV is being shipped, or is it an expensive TV or a cheap TV? But when you have a smart TV in their household, you can actually track what they're interested in watching. You have so much more information to create a really rich advertising platform. And that basically means that any company that has a large digital presence, has a lot of eyeballs, and has a lot of data, by which now monetizing that data is a super interesting channel, because companies don't want to be completely dependent on one revenue stream for their entire business. So taking a step back, what does this mean for everyday folks? What does this mean for me and you? What does it mean for someone who maybe doesn't like ads that much? If everyone's an ad network, won't that just create a lot of ad fatigue? Well, for one, you're definitely going to be seeing a lot more ads on a lot more channels these days. Anything that's digital and has, consumer eyeballs will probably start being monetized screen real estate. On the good side, as a consumer, the ad targeting is likely to get a whole lot better because there's such a rich ecosystem of data available to show you offers that are actually meaningful and interesting to you versus things you don't care about